This is the Environmental Protection Commission. This is a special meeting / public hearing, Tuesday, March 19, 2024. This is an in-person meeting. The first item of business is a public hearing, EPC 01-2024, Marianne Road, N. De Silva Jr., to demolish an existing structure and construct a new family residence, drive, drainage, subsurface sewage disposal system, and other related features proximate to wetlands and watercourses. The property lies along the north side of Marianne Road, approximately 1,115 feet east of Brookside Road, and is identified as map number 01, lot 91. The zone is R2, and it is approximately 1.19 acres. Rick?
Mr. Chairman, we'll start off with some housekeeping items, given the fact that this is a public hearing. For the record, the initial agenda on the February 7th, 2024 meeting was posted with the town clerk on February 1st. This matter was first given consideration at the EPC's February 7th, 2024 meeting. The commission acknowledged receipt and determined to hold a public hearing on this application based on determination that here would be in the public interest and that the project may have a significant impact on regulated areas. The applicant was given notice of acceptance and the schedule of the public hearing on February 15th. A rather substantial list of additional information was generated based on my review of the application and your comments provided during that first review, and that was forwarded to the applicant on February 15th. Per the regulations, notice of the public hearing was posted in the Darien Times in accordance with the regulations, posted both on March 7th and the 14th. The public hearing fees and other related fees had been paid by the applicant. Adjoining property owners within 100 feet had been given notice in accordance with the regulations by the applicant on or about March 2nd. Additional information was provided back to our office both on March 4th and March 18th. This public hearing, tonight, March 19th, 2024, the agenda was posted with the town clerk on the 14th. You would have noted that in your electronic package, not only were the plans and reports posted on OpenView, but as a copy of my initial review report was posted on March 14th. In that report, the plans that are subject to the review under the public hearing are listed with some additions, and those additions include correspondence from Brian McMahon, who is reviewing the application on the behalf of the town for engineering matters, drainage and water quality. There had been a revised set of civil drawings that were revised March 17th. There was correspondence from the project engineer, again, March 17th. There was an engineering report that had been revised, again, March 17th. Project narrative was recently uploaded. And there's correspondence that was provided today from Art Bellis, who is an abutter to the property, who had some questions and concerns relating to drainage and other matters. We'll also make reference to all the other plans and correspondence and reports that are found in our files concerning this matter under EPC application 01-2024 for 20 Marianne Road, and that's for Nelson De Silva Jr. And that was initially prepared in February 2024. Just briefly, the application there is for the demolition of an existing single-family dwelling on the property. The property currently supports that single-family dwelling, drive, patios, walkways, septic, subsurface sewage disposal system, and other related facilities. It's characterized by the presence of gently to moderately sloping developed uplands. There's inland wetlands, watercourse, or one or more water courses and many large trees on the property. Most of the developed space is to the south along Marion Road. The more natural space and the wetlands are more towards the northern edge of the property. The wetlands kind of form an X in the back of the property, pretty wide-ranging. And in terms of the vegetation types, they range from long grass and ornamentals to woodland, that is wooded wetlands. Those soils have been identified by a soil scientist, and they were surveyed, and the flags were shown on the plan. Property's not in the flood hazard zone, in the board's initial review, they outlined in a February 15th, 2024 letter, 10 items that merit further review. And they range from recollating the information that was posted on OpenView to a positive endorsement from the engineering peer reviewer to an environmental assessment of potential impacts, a discussion of alternatives to reduce the potential encroachments, important to many of the commission members, water, soils, additional soils, and groundwater information to assess the potential impact of groundwater on basements, the necessity of dewatering devices, and what that would have an impact on the wetlands and water courses. I think today you'll expect a presentation. The applicant is here with their representatives. Gather your information, ask questions, but there is, just keep in mind that there is some information that still warrants further, the applicant needs to grapple with and to provide information. Some of the other ones too have to do with, some of the applications had pools on it, some of it was not a pool, trees to be lost, to be removed. There's a detailed list in our correspondence of the 15th. With that, I'm available to answer questions, but I believe the applicant is here and is willing to make a presentation.
Please identify yourself.
Yes, sir. My name is James DeMeo. I'm a professional engineer. My address is 1 McConney Grove in Derby. Actually, that was a pretty good summary right there. So I'm going to try to keep this brief, and then this way you guys can ask as many questions as you'd like. I'm just going to go over a few of the main concepts of what's happening. So one of the main things, as was previously mentioned, there are wetlands that pretty much cut off the whole back end of the property. Just to give you a little bit more history too, the applicant was originally going in with the intention of putting an addition on, but because the existing house is over property setbacks, ZBA looked at it and said, why don't you think about rebuilding? Now we're here. So the existing footprint is just over 3,000 square feet, and we're proposing a 2,715. So we're reducing the footprint of the house. However, we will be increasing the impervious area from the driveway, approximately plus or minus about 400 square feet, because the old driveway went into the front of the house, where this is going to go alongside. So it's going to be a side entry garage. There currently is no stormwater management on the property. So with the new development, we have to evaluate it based upon undeveloped characteristics. So, and during that, we are reducing the peak flows from an undeveloped site, let alone from an existing site that is already developed. So we're significantly reducing that number, but from undeveloped, we're still also in compliance. In terms of a couple of more engineering-based things, such as the water quality volume, we're required to have 575 cubic feet approximately, and we're supplying 1,156, so more than double, or about double. And then even groundwater recharge volume, We're only required to have about 100 cubic feet of volume. Again, we're doing the 11,560 because the way that we're able to achieve that is we are completely filling up all of our proposed infiltration systems. So basically when we get a more severe storm, it overflows out the top. It doesn't, you know what I mean? We don't have a low level overflow coming out all the time. No, we're promoting infiltration. We're trying to get as much back into the ground as we possibly can. We have two systems. The first system is essentially capturing everything from the driveway. And that system is 3 rows of 2 Coltec 150 XL HDs. And then our roof leaders are all tying into 4 rows of 3 Coltec 280s in the back. Again, they bubble out. Significant trees, we're looking at only about 4 that we're taking out.
Have been taken out?
No, that
Or,
will be.
or taken out, or will be taken out?
What we're proposing to take out.
Okay, because I saw a couple of tree cuts.
The-
I was there 2 hours ago, so.
Were they
somebody
fresh?
came, there are trees that were cut, there are trees that, I'm sure,
Yeah.
my tree expert.
Were they fresh? I honestly,
No, I say,
Oh.
I don't know the quality of the tree,
Okay.
et cetera, et cetera. All I did take notice is that there were fresh cut trees.
Fresh
You know,
cut trees,
down to the
yes.
ground, right? And when I say next to a water source, I mean, from here, 3 feet from a water source. So I know, one of my questions is, since it's that close to the water source, did you speak with Mr. Taliamelli before taking them down? Did the applicant, because you may not know, okay? But
Correct.
did the applicant, who's responsible for property, cut down these trees, because they're next to the wetland, okay? So, or maybe in the wetland, yeah, actually. And so that, that's an issue for
yeah,
me.
I will look into that. I do not know.
Okay.
And that's why I asked if they were fresh cut, because I do know that there were a few stumps that were there from predating the applicant owning the property.
Yeah.
So that's a good distinction. Okay. We will have an answer for you next time. At about the end of last week, we did get some additional comments from the third-party review. I'm just going to try to go through them very quickly, just so we can talk about some of the changes that we're proposing based upon some of these comments. For grading, his first one was talking about cross slopes. That has been remedied, so we won't have an infeasible cross slope within the driveway anymore. He was concerned about trapping water in between the proposed mounded septic system in the front and the house. Additional spot grades have been shown that we'll be able to shed the water out to the side. He requested spot elevations for the proposed retaining wall. That's probably one of the biggest changes that was made after these comments was due to the elevations of the site and it being very difficult to get gravity out for the footing drains. We did lower the building slightly, a little bit more, and we will utilize a sump pump. But what that allowed us to do was that allowed us to eliminate a lot of fill in the driveway and lower the driveway as well, thus eliminating the retaining wall. So that's that comment. His next comment was in regard to the catch basin location, which was along the front property line. That has been relocated further into the driveway now, because now we were able to drop the driveway and shed the water into the property instead of pushing it towards the road. He requested downspout locations, that has been added. He had some concerns about the pipe entering the underground system. More specifically, it was a 12-inch RCP. However, now it's an HDPE pipe, which does have a smaller pipe diameter or thickness, so that it can go into the end walls. I just spoke about the footing drains and the sump pump. That was pretty much number 4. Number 5, there was an exterior staircase shown on the plans, which was actually on the eastern side of the house. That, I don't know why that was shown on the architecturals there. I think that was an error. However, there is going to be a stairwell located directly behind the garage that has been added to the plans. And the reviewer requested that there was a drain also down there and indicate how we're planning on handling the water that goes into the stairwell, which it'll be tied in with the sump pump and the footing drains and all of that. The reviewer indicated in my report that I called out soil group A. I did review, and however, the soil survey indicates C and D. C and D is called out specifically in the wetlands. Everywhere up of the wetlands was actually B. And the model was correct. I just had A in one location when I was calculating the ground recharge volume. So that has been updated accordingly. Talked about, he essentially, under stormwater number 7, it's kind of a big paragraph, but it boils down to the concern of shedding water from on top of the mounded system towards Marianne Road. And in my approach, I modeled everything going to the wetlands. And that still stands, because what ends up happening is even if water gets shed towards Marianne Road, there is actually a natural low point by the telephone pole, which is directly alongside the property line. And it's almost like a little swale that's in between. There's a low point along the property line. So, because both the grades come up towards the two houses. So the water still finds its way to the wetland. A discharge pipe for the drainage. Again, another comment about the retaining wall, which we no longer have. He requested that, the reviewer requested that the graded cleanouts over the infiltration system in the driveway be revised to show a solid cover, and that has been done. For sediment and erosion control, he recommended the use of hay bales to reinforce the silt fence along the wetlands. Currently, I'm still not showing that. I will leave it up to the commission. However, due to the fact that it is a relatively flat lot, and didn't want to introduce something like hay bales into the wetlands, I'll leave it up to the commission. The applicant will comply if that is what the commission would like. However, it seemed a little excessive just due to the general flat sloping nature of the lot. Requested notes about the construction entrance, or the stone in the construction entrance being maintained. That has been added. Stockpile area shown on the plans. That has been added. And the last 2 comments that he had were also both in regards to the retaining wall. That is no longer there. So that's mine. Would you like to? Yeah, here we go.
State your name for the record, please.
Yes. For the record, Richard Groziello, professional landscape designer, 159 Grove Street, New Milford. Good evening. I prepared the mitigation planting plan. I walked the site. Nelson contacted me, and I also do not know about the tree cutting. I was brought into the project fairly recently, so that's something that we'll have to ascertain and get that information to you, as Joe said. I walked the site. I was actually surprised to see there's very little invasive material within the wetlands itself. You do have a lot of exotic material, obviously, like the pachysandra. And according to your regs, I see that most of that material should be hand removed, which I put that in my narrative as well. There are some larger areas of winged euonymus to the northwest of the property. Some of them pretty large, I mean like a 2-inch caliber at the base. I had recently attended to a talk by Peter Pacone, who's the DEEP invasive plant removal person. He recommends on plants like that to flush cut to the ground and apply trichopilar right to the base of that plant. I don't know if that's something the Wetland Commission would want to do, but we could either do that or we could just keep cutting that to stay on top of that. So the plan really deals with talking about removing the invasive material as well as protecting the wetlands. I also saw that you wanted demarcation as to either a fence or a stone border. We're adding a fence, and all the material that I'm planting is native to the state of Connecticut. I've added some Acer rubrum to try to get more tree cover back in there, 3 Acer rubrums, 5 Amelanchier canadensis, 3 Salix discolors, 17 Viburnum dentatum, 17 Ilex discellata, the wetland seed mix, and then 750 assorted wetland, Connecticut native wetland perennials and grasses along that fence line. Now, I've done a lot of mitigation plans, I've done a lot of installation, I've done a lot of wetland removal. My philosophy is I think it's best to use smaller plants as opposed to larger plants. They're easier to maintain, the roots take hold faster, so that's why I'm recommending using the Acer rubrums in a 3-gallon mitigation size. It's a remediation size plant. They typically are about 6 to 7 feet tall, smaller root system. They adapt much quicker. We'll have to set up a watering system for them to make sure that they are watered. There is standing water. There are a number of native plants within the wetlands already. There's a huge patch of carex. I don't know which variety it is. You can't identify carex until you have a seed head, so I don't know. They might be seeding pretty soon. There's some skunk cabbage, obviously. There's very standing water. I also found Lindera benzoin and some clethra. Other than that, there's small groupings of barberry, winged euonymus. There is some multiflora rose. I think the biggest thing is the pachysandra, getting all that pachysandra out and reholding that soil.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then sorry, James Mayo again. Just want to add one more thing. And we understand completely that staff hasn't had time to review it, so we understand if the public hearing remains open. Aside from that, any questions?
Have you finished your presentation, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Bill, you want to start?
Yeah, the groundwater versus the infiltration depths of Coltex, whatever you're using. Is there a problem, how close is the groundwater to where your depth of these? And it's probably in there, and I'm sorry if I missed it, but I'm curious about, because the ability is, how will that infiltrate if the groundwater is right there, just inches below or whatever it is below?
So we are maintaining at least 2 feet from the groundwater table
Okay.
to the bottom of our system, which would be the stone. So,
Excuse me a second, Bill.
sorry, yes, sir.
Did you do perk tests?
Yes, yep, I did deep and perk tests in both the locations of the underground infiltration
How
system.
about the basement?
No, because it's essentially more or less on the same footprint, just shifted slightly. So, yeah.
Okay, I'll get to you later.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Why don't you?
That's good. So it's 2 feet, about approximately 2 feet difference from
Yes, sir.
the bottom of the infiltration system to groundwater.
Yes, sir.
And then, probably the same question you're thinking about, is the basement. There was some difference, you're changing a little bit of elevation. I'm not sure if it's just the driveway or the basement itself, but is it still going to be a 9-foot, 8 to 9 foot basement? And where does that fit in regards to depth below the groundwater table?
So I will give you an actual elevation right now. So the basement will be approximately 3 feet under the groundwater table.
Okay. So the engineering of that, you're going to have some constant sump pumps going?
Yes.
And is that sump pump water going to go into the infiltration system?
No.
It's going to go,
It'll be discharged basically in the back of the property in proximity to the wetlands.
so you're going to add a significant amount of water. With that size basement, I mean, I have a bunch of engineers here, so I'll leave it up to you guys. what do you think? I figure one sump up 24/7, two? Or three?
Most likely it'll be, typically it'll need one, and then it may have a second one as like a backup, but that would,
Because you're adding a significant amount of water to an existing wetland system. Because you're 3 feet below. So even in the dry period, there's gonna be significant water. There's gonna be constant water there.
I mean, aside from, the only way to construct it with a basement, or the home with a basement is, even if we had gravity, it would be a significant amount of water either way, because even if it was a foot, 2 feet, I don't think it's really gonna matter in terms of the volume that gets pushed out anyway, due to the fact that the soils are only gonna allow so much water to make its way there so quickly. I don't know how else to describe that. I mean, we're not gonna starve the wetlands, that's for sure.
No,
Yeah,
digging below the water table and pushing out a sump pump is not starving the wetland.
Yeah.
No,
Correct.
If I had an issue is you're gonna feed the wetland.
yeah.
Okay, and you know, we've had instances of that around town where it's created issues. So, okay. Anyway, sorry, Bill.
No, that's all right. I mean, one of the problems we're having in this town is flooding. And, you know, most people think, put more water in a wetland, what's the difference? But the wetlands now, they absorb so much, now they push out, and we're having flooding issues all over town. So we're really trying to restrict how much goes into them, even from basements. And in some places, we've asked them to put those into their infiltration systems. And we're probably gonna go more toward that, just to try to keep more water, surface water, from being out there during these big storms. So you might wanna keep that in mind
Yep.
as you're going through your plan.
Or do you mind if I respond, one additional thing?
Yeah.
My only concern with that is will the infiltration system be sized in a way that can actually accept all of this water? And then will it be far enough away not to feed itself, i.e. feed the foundation again?
Right.
So on a site like this, we don't have a lot of space.
Right.
And you know what I mean? So we're kind of restricted in that regard
Yeah.
without doing significant amount of disturbance. So the only way that we'd be able to achieve that is
No
probably, well, yeah.
That's one of the things we're starting to get to, is
Yeah.
that maybe these basements are getting too deep or too large. So, you know, something's giving here, so it's not, it can be done, but
Yeah.
then it restricts your amount of square footage, we understand that, so.
Correct.
But just to keep in mind.
Yes, sir.
And the only other, we're trying to get 50-foot upland review areas marked on whether it goes right through your house or not. I don't see that anyplace, but we're trying to get that on all of our copies. That's all I got.
Quick question for staff. Do you have like a standard detail for the placards? Like your wetland marking placards? Do you
Oh,
have
he
it?
wasn't referring to that, I think he was referring to on the plan.
Yeah, on the
Yeah,
plan.
correct.
Plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you had a specific like detail of your medallion, and then I could throw it on the plan. If not, that's fine.
Well, no, there wouldn't, I don't think he's suggesting we put it into a conservation easement with a medallion.
Okay, all right.
He's just adding the
So-
50-foot
Yeah,
wetland
just put it on your
system on the plan.
plan.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's all.
So some towns have it, which is why I bring it up.
So I have to ask about the current basement for the home that's there now. What kind of basement does the current home have?
It's an unfinished basement.
How many feet high?
It's an 8-foot basement.
And the home that's being proposed here is how many feet basement?
9.
Could you, there's a description on the schematic, proposed well location. Could you tell me what that means?
Drinking water.
So is there town water to this location? No.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, that's why you have the septic, I guess.
Correct, yeah, and then, again, the well has to be a certain distance away from the septic.
Got it.
Septic, the only suitable location was in the front, so that forced our hands with the well location.
I understand.
Yeah, yes, sir.
There's a discrepancy in here on how many acres this property is on. Is it 1.19 acres?
Yes, it should be 1.19, yes.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Jim?
The only thing I noticed when I was out there yesterday is some of the tree removal you referenced, Eric, which I have less of an issue with than other commissioners. But that, I don't think we've had a lot of rain in the most recent couple of days, but this is a very wet-looking site. I mean, all the way out to the street. I did climb around, I went in the back. You could see a very busy and active wetland back there, so just, you know, we're not to build Bill Wright's questions. I don't know that we're here to reduce the size of your proposed home by eliminating a basement, but I think you're gonna find it's gonna be a burdensome issue you're gonna come up against.
Yeah, the construction is not going to be easy. It's not like a nice, easy,
Right,
but like, well, let's just form up a footing and go. No.
right.
It will require more effort just due to the groundwater table, yes.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
So getting back to the current basement, you said it's
Yes, ma'am.
8 feet high, and you said that the proposed dwelling is actually shrinking the footprint of the house a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there currently a sump pump?
I honestly don't have that answer. I can look into that for you. I would have to assume that there is, just due to the
Okay.
elevations, but I don't want to say that for sure. I will
And
make sure I have
Then,
that.
of course, how is that being discharged would be the next question.
Yeah, I did, so during my site visit, I did not see any discharge locations.
Okay,
So part of me is also a little concerned that there really isn't much, or it's deep inside the wetlands is another one of my concerns. Because if you look at the existing septic system, it about half of it is in the wetland. So, and because we're rebuilding, we cannot use that septic system.
Right.
So, so yeah, if that's a precursor for the rest of how it was constructed, I'd have to assume that it's deeper into the wetland would be the discharge location. I'll be fully transparent, I did not go far into the wetlands. I maybe walked 5-10 feet in, and I stopped my site walk there because I knew we were not going in there.
okay. And could you just, for the record, clarify whether or not there is a pool as part of this project?
There's not.
Okay, because we had raised that question the last time, and we're told that there wasn't a pool, but then in Mr. De Silva's letter to the neighbors dated March 1st, he does mention a pool. So will there be an application coming before us at some point in the future to put in a pool?
If there was any intention to do a pool, it would be a separate application.
Okay, so I
But-
did not
but-
see a
but,
pool on any plans
Correct.
now.
As far as I know right now, there's no intention to currently do a pool.
Okay, just curious about the mention of the pool. One of the things that's been happening is when mitigation plantings are put in, there becomes an issue that deer are eating them, so then a deer fence is put in, or they come before us and ask to have a deer fence put in, which, you know, obviously in wetlands, we don't like to do that. Are these plants, they're natives, but are they, to the extent possible, are we putting in deer-resistant plantings?
Unfortunately, with the amount of deer in the state of Connecticut and the housing issue, there's no such thing as a deer resistant.
Some are more resistant than
Some are more
others.
resistant than others. But that, I think that speaks to why it's a pretty clean wetland, but it's almost too clean. There's not a lot of native plants in there already. They don't eat lindera. I have lindera specified. They tend not to eat clethra. Clethra is thriving there. Ilex they do chew, but I think it's an important component of the wetland. The thing is to try to just create a habitat where, especially with the forbs, the perennials, and the grasses, where we can create that buffer
Yeah,
to protect the wetland, where those plants possibly would be less eaten. It also is incumbent upon homeowners nowadays to use as many deer repellents as possible. Deer stopper is one that I like to use because it's clove, garlic, and cinnamon oil as opposed to Bob-X or liquid fence, because you spray that and you don't want to go outside. So it's no wonder the deer don't eat it. And let me tell you, if you spill that on you and you're in public, it's happened. It's not a pleasant thing. The other thing is just to stay on top of things, to protect plants when they're young. Even possibly the Acer rubrums, I just worked on a site up in New Milford where we've actually protected the trunks of trees from deer buck rubs. So that's something I could add that as a note, so to further
the
enhance.
fencing, the little.
Just a little
the
fence, a
caging,
little
right.
cage around the tree itself, so that, because a lot of buck rub will do just
Yeah.
as much damage as
Right.
them
And
them
they kind
browsing.
of do that in the fall, right?
So I think it's a constant issue.
Yeah.
There's no deer fence proposed.
Okay.
There shouldn't be. That creates more pressure for neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
so you don't need that. I think you just have to be vigilant and be out there. Irish Spring soap actually works.
How does that, how do you? does
You
that-
could shave it, you could hang it in netting. It has to be reapplied because obviously it gets wet and it decomposes, it melts. But that has proven effective. And there are some other products that actually, there are these little canisters that you put a little deer repellent in this canister and you place them in the ground, and they're fairly effective as long as you keep filling the product up. And it's a similar product to like a deer stopper or something like that. It's really trying to train the deer, to see the patterns and train the deer to keep them off of it. I didn't see a lot of evidence of deer browse there,
Okay.
but it's always
But
it's
if you
always a
put your nice
possibility.
new plantings in.
Well, exactly, the pretty stuff is nice, then they come and eat it.
Yeah.
The other issue is anything that comes from, in a nursery production, is fertilized. So that fertilizer actually adds salts to the plant, and that's what the deer are looking for. So even something like mountain laurels that, you'll see groves of mountain laurels that aren't touched by deer. You take a mountain laurel from the nursery, they'll devour it because it's grown, with so much fertilizer in it, it puts so much salt out and tender growth that they're gonna devour it. So in time, when those materials are out,
So the plantings that you're proposing using are not from those types of?
most of the
nurseries?
plantings I'm proposing are mitigation, remediation plantings. I cannot guarantee that some of those nurseries do not add fertilizer to their soils. I cannot say that because I'm not growing the plants myself. But I know typically with the mitigation type plants and the remediation, they use less fertilizer.
Okay.
Then with the plugs or either the D-Plug 50s or if we use quartz, there's no fertilizers in those.
Okay,
So that's not an issue. So we're not adding anything synthetic to the wetland now.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one more question for you. Could you just clarify, in the revised engineering report, it states that the site is an essentially graded from the road in the direction of the wetlands located in the rear of the lot. But this is contrary to what was stated in the peer review report, where they said that the grading kind of tends to go the other way. Am I misreading that?
So all right, so where the driveway is existing, coming into the property, it's just under elevation 100. And then it goes to 98 at the property line between 20 and 22, so to the east. The wetlands are at elevation approximately 96. The 96 contours kind of just meander all around that. So for the most part, it does jump up from the road it does hit 100, or the 100 contour does go in front of the house and wrap around. So there is a little bit of uphill from the road, but again, it will go to the side, shift to that low point along the property line, and still go into the back where the wetlands are. And then anywhere else, for instance, like just off the sides of the house, the existing house, it does go towards the wetland pretty much directly. So the only place is the front where there's a house in the way, and it basically just will roll around it and then still make its way to the wetland. There really isn't two points, it's not like anything that goes to the road is going across the street and towards the other properties. It's still going to the same wetland watercourse area.
Okay. That's all I have.
You got one more? I got one more.
Please.
Landscape question or idea anyway. Our big concern is lawn creep, which seems to always happen after post-construction. And demarcation's great, but a fence is not permanent. Is there a thought of having boulders placed in front of, or at the end of the lawn currently today to make it harder for have a lawn creep?
I had asked Mr. De Silva that, I'm sorry to cut you off, I did ask him, he said he would prefer to put the fence up, that's why I put the fence on the plan, but that's why I planted heavily in front of the fence as well, to protect that lawn creep. We can propose to.
Do both.
We can propose to Mr. De Silva that we set some rock there as well.
I agree, if I don't know what kind of fence it is, split rail, whatever, it's a beautiful,
split rail.
beautiful thing, that looks great.
Right.
And the boulders don't have to be huge, but they would at least prevent lawnmowers from working their way on the other side of that, which we find all the time. So,
Yeah, lawn guys don't like to have their machines hitting rocks. It's not good for them. Yeah.
consideration, that's all, thanks.
Yeah. We'll ask Mr. De Silva.
Okay.
Okay,
I have a couple questions.
please.
Are you working with the health department to get the approval for the septic system already?
Yes.
Okay. I think what's imperative to get, to move to the next phase here is to get the environmental evaluation. And in that evaluation is the characteristics of the wetlands, the potential impacts, and then the whole alternative test. Now, I want to remind the commission members that because it's a public hearing, because we have the two-prong approach to the review of this, there has to be the finding of no prudent and feasible alternative. So just keep that in mind. But as part of that whole evaluation, I get a bit concerned with, and it does relate to the dwelling, the basement, the groundwater, is that we've driven the house with this revision down further into the groundwater, where it will run a sump pump or two sump pumps 24/7, and the potential impact on essentially draining that space into the wetlands. What is the impact going to be on the wetland? I think it's critical. One of the alternatives that you look at is moving this dwelling in the opposite direction, is reducing the height of a basement, elevating it, have a de minimis kind of impact on groundwater and the necessity of having systems, truncating lines back out of the wetlands. But also with that alternate, with that reevaluation is looking at what are we maintaining as a setback. There has been a very good planting plan provided. They're doing their due diligence on trying to address the drainage. But I do think that that is essential, is that a good environmental evaluation, character of the wetland, what the impact is going to be, alternatives to reduce impacts, not just spatially relative to the wetland, but what things such as what's going to go on with the basement and the pumping, because it can have a pretty dramatic change to it. It could be very dramatic in terms of changing the character of the wetland if it's saturating substantial portions of it.
Couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more, and it's worse when it rains. Because then you're going to have the second sump pump is going to be throwing out more water directly into the water courses when it's already full. And so quite frankly, I think virtually every commissioner has said that we have a major concern there. Okay, and so, Rick, go ahead.
And the other thing is seeking to secure positive endorsement of the drainage overall impact, because I know that some revisions have been remade, and you go item by item to try to address each of the comments. But, we still have to get something back to say that it's positively endorsed. And the other important thing that came up, as part of this whole public hearing experience is, we have a concerned abutter who has provided written correspondence, showed some photographs. I mean, I want to be absolutely sure that as a result of the development, that there's not going to be an adverse impact on drainage in the adjoining properties. So, and I think we have to reassure them that that's not going to happen with, a redevelopment of a pretty,
Pretty substantial.
right, exactly what I was saying. But I think those are very important to address those matters as we move forward, along with the other things that, an item by item response to each of the things that we listed in there, and with anything else that you came up this evening, there were, good comments and questions that have been provided to date.
Well, hopefully they know what they still owe you from that email, and hopefully been taking good notes. So as to what we've sort of talked about.
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes.
you don't mind, just so I can kind of understand the view of the commission in terms of, because we've been circling around the sump pump and the amount of water quite a bit tonight. In everybody's view, is it more favorable to add more material to raise the house? In the proximity of the wetlands, because again, one of the alternatives, which I have no problem proposing for prudent and feasible, is raising the house and then showing what the grading will be like, which will then ultimately, there'll be a retaining wall, there'll be an additional fill within the upland review area. Is that something that the commission feels like they would prefer to see? Am I able to ask that question, just to kind of gauge real quick?
That's one alternative,
Yep.
okay?
No, and I
Bill Wright said, Bill Wright came up and goes, my concern, okay, and my concern is, you got a nice little wetland back there, you got neighbors.
Yep.
Okay, and, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't get around town, being chair of VPC, everybody, is telling me that, okay, hey, why is flooding so much more? It's because the house next door, okay, did this X, Y, or Z. And so, I can appreciate that. And in some cases, I've actually seen it. So what I'm concerned about is, if we were to have one or two sump pumps pumping out water there, okay, is that going to create significant damage to the wetland? And how is that going to affect neighbors? I mean, I'm very concerned about that. Okay, and so, and one of the alternatives, I mean, there are other alternatives. I'm not a licensed engineer in the state of Connecticut, but I can come up with them. Okay, and as you can, you're sitting there say, make a bathtub out of it, pump it out once, make a bathtub, and you'll never have to. Well, I'm gonna say never. Okay, but water should not get in if it's constructed correctly. I mean, that's one alternative, and so you pump out the water once, and you build your bathtub, and that's another prudent and feasible. That's for you guys to determine, but that is an alternative.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we can. No basement is very clearly, or a reduced. A reduced basement is very clearly an alternative also. Okay, so those are issues that I particularly will be looking at. Okay, in the future.
Yes, sir.
Is that? You may not like it, but that's the way it is. So.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So those are my concerns. Is there anybody from that does? Yes, I'm gonna get to them. Okay, we're gonna open up to the public now. Is there a member of the public that would like to speak? Yes, sir.
Member, state your name for the record, please, once you're up. And address.
Good evening, I'm Arthur Bellis at 22 Marianne Road, which I believe is on the east side of 20 Marianne Road. I had a similar question that you had about the pool. The cover letter to me did mention that there would be a pool, and the notification in the newspaper said there was not a pool. So have we closed that issue that there will not be a pool?
Okay, that said, in this application, there's not a pool.
Okay,
Anybody can apply for, anybody in this town can apply for a pool,
understood.
okay? And if it's within our jurisdiction, it comes through the process, okay? Given that, given the wetlands and that, let's put it up. It would be a very interesting application to review.
Understood, okay. I was just confused when I
But they
read
would have
the
to,
two documents.
they would have to apply. yeah.
Okay.
And as a result of this, because of the significant wetlands, it would require another public hearing.
Understood, all right, thank
Okay,
you.
So
Okay.
you'd be noticed.
I'm not sure if, I did email Rick today. I wish I had more notice, but I do have pictures. I'm happy to present.
Sure.
Yeah.
Would you please submit them to Rick?
Two sets of the same pictures.
I think this was uploaded to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
it was,
saw
it was uploaded
You
as
have
well.
seen them,
Yeah.
okay. I did want to mention, if you look carefully in the picture, you'll see in the Pachysandra kind of a light yellow line that starts kind of the edge of the leaves. The yard is a mess, but at the end of the leaves, you'll see there is an active waterway that comes maybe about 15 feet from the house. And when it rains, that water is pouring from that point, and it kind of weaves its way towards the back, towards Huckleberry Lane in the back, and there's an active stream, so it's feeding that stream. So,
Sir, did you own the house when we had the Ida and what was the other one?
Sandy?
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
Did you own the house?
Yes, we did.
Could
We've
you-
been there
Could
11
you
years.
describe what happened?
Yes, I could. We lost probably 10 to 12 large trees in the woods in our back of our house, and Pat White, who was the owner at the time, lost probably a dozen trees. There's still trees leaning from that storm way back at the edge of their property. They have never been cleaned up. The flooding was substantial. We had flooding that came close to probably 20 feet up onto our lawn. And contrary to what we had heard tonight, the water did not go directly behind their house. It steered into my yard because their yard is actually sloping towards my property. And that was a substantial runoff that had come from those storms. That had just, again, heavy rains, but it did make its way into my yard in a pretty substantial way. And I did take pictures on page 2, and this was a recent storm. We got about an inch of rain. And you can see how there's an extremely high water table. This is on the page 2. And my concern is the septic system that we have in our yard. It's in the back left corner, is my understanding from the town records. And so, as we have a high water table, I worry every time I flush the toilet about if it's going to be the last time we can flush the toilet without it pouring into our home. So I'm very concerned about this. And the proposal to move the house backwards and getting closer and closer to that active waterway is extremely concerning to me, because one, it can certainly impact our septic tank, and that's a huge expense as a homeowner to have to replace and so on. So that is a serious concern I have. And lastly, I know there was a planting plan and there were proposals, but for the record, the building brothers are speculators. That was made as public record in the ZBA. So I don't know what their intentions are. I do know their intention is to flip the house. So will they maintain the plans as they've described? Will the next homeowner do what they're proposing? Who knows? We do have 5 deer. Our children have actually named the deer that live in the woods. One of them is named Darcy, for the record. And so they're actively out there. We have fox, we have coyote, we have raccoon, possum, countless birds, squirrels, and I'm an active animal lover. And I love the animals. I would hate to see a fence go up. I moved to this town because I love the animals and the wildlife and the constant shrinkage of lots and trees coming down left and right. I moved there because it had a beautiful woods in the back, and it's quiet, and the animals are just lovely. So I am deeply concerned about what my yard will look like and the impact to the wildlife and birds going forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure, please.
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah, of
So
course.
you said that you're like downstream of, so the topography is such that, so you're to the east,
Yes,
okay, and your property is a bit lower
Yes,
than
it
number
is.
20?
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
thank you.
yeah, so 18 Marianne Road, then 20, then 22. 20 Marianne is sloping from 18 to 22. It's sloping downwards towards my property,
Okay, so what I'm,
in the back. And
okay.
the front yards, as they said, was correct.
Right.
They're fairly flat, and no water does go across the street.
But
That
in
is
the
absolutely true.
back, you're a little bit lower?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so the water table is, so if the water table is 3 feet on number 20, presumably it's less than 3 feet on your property?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. And so my concern with a deeper basement, obviously, you're gonna have a higher pressure, and if there's water being pushed into that wetland, you know, it's just gonna pond back there, and it probably will create more mosquitoes back there, and potentially will then push into my yard, because there's nowhere else for it to go.
That's great, thank you.
yeah, thank
You're
you.
welcome, thank you.
Is there another member of the public that would like to speak? Is there another member of the public that would like to speak? No? Okay. Given the number of questions that are outstanding here, we're going to keep the public hearing open. Do I need a vote for that?
Yes, we'll put a motion to continue the
Okay.
public hearing to a date certain.
Can I get a motion to continue the public hearing, Jim?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the public hearing remain open for EPC application 01-2024 with respect to 20 Marianne Road.
I'd like to second that motion.
All in favor? Okay, so we'll set up the next meeting when, Rick, okay?
I was gonna ask, would you like me to respond to the residents' comments, or do we just?
Sure, I guess, should we let them?
It's up to you. You guys already made the motion, so it's fine
Yeah.
either way. It's,
You can respond to them
Sure.
in the
Okay.
writing when you do your overall response.
Okay?
yes, sir. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Moving on,
It'll take like just a couple minutes.
the next one is EPC 5-2024 Hanson Road, Town of Darien, Department of Public Works, replacement of the Hanson Road Bridge over Stony Brook. To construct a replacement bridge, wing walls, channel enhancements, and other related activities in and approximately to the wetlands, watercourses, and special flood hazard areas. The property lies along a reach of Hanson Road, generally bordered by Linda Lane to the east and Hummingbird Lane to the west. Properties nearest the project area include 410 Hollow Tree Ridge Road, 88 Hanson, and 100 Hanson Road. This is a public hearing. Rick, you want to give a,
Yes, please. Again, we'll take care of some housekeeping items. Just for the record, the application was submitted in February of this year. That agenda for that February meeting was posted with the town clerk on February 1st. The EPC accepted the application at the February 7th meeting, and they determined to hold a public hearing on the matter based upon a determination that a hearing would be in the public interest. The applicant was given notice of acceptance and about the scheduling of a public hearing in correspondence dated February 15th. Also on February 15th, the staff compiled a list of information that it deemed necessary and the commission deemed necessary to review and move forward with the application to ensure that it remained consistent with the regulations in terms of impacts. And the public hearing was published in the Darien Times, March 7th and the 14th by the commission staff in accordance with the regulations. The adjoining property owners were noticed, or given notice. by certified mail on March 5th, in accordance with the regulation. Additional information was provided to our offices on both March 5th and March 14th. The agenda for this public hearing was posted with the town clerk last Thursday on the 14th. And staff had compiled a brief agenda summary report dated March 14th that was also posted with online in our open view. In that agenda summary was a listing of the materials that were pertinent to the application, the plans, the reports, the individual responses. But I'd also like to make reference to all the materials that we have in our files relevant to the application review and submittal. Just for the record, the area that is subject to this application is a reach around Stony Brook as it passes under Hanson Road. It has the channel of Stony Brook. There's a narrow wetland fringe. There are special flood hazard areas that are influence the space. There are stone walls. There are many large trees, or some number of large trees in the area. The river generally flows north to south from the country club through residential properties on the south side of the work zone. The brook space to the north is more has been altered over time, again with stone walls and more manicured spaces surrounding the river. To the south, it's more native with some number of wooded space. So as report was done, identifying the wetlands and the watercourses, the floodplain has been shown, including the regulatory floodway, which is the more restrictive space along the river, where there's the more dynamic flood forces, and with that we've conducted a review and outlined in this agenda summary report some of the important items that the applicant was required to address. I'll be very brief in stating there's an existing bridge constructed in the mid-1930s, and it's a single span, concrete slab, stone masonry abutments. There's a shallow water main that crosses the area. The bridge conditions have been defined as critical. And as you probably have driven on Hanson Road, you'd notice the plate that sits on that portion of the bridge. And as the project engineer notices, evidence of serious shifting, settlement, and scour. And again, the plating is there for additional level of protection, and is subject to regular inspections and monitoring to assess any further decline. What is being proposed is, in lieu of a bridge, they're going to be installing a culvert. And so there's a new 18-foot wide by 7-foot high concrete box culvert with wing walls. There'll be riprap, guide rails, and other related features. The project itself requires some tree removals, and it will also include channel enhancements, adding material stabilization practices, and certain environmental elements such as boulder resting stations for fish and so forth. There's also the critical elements that need to be reviewed as part of this, if you review the regulations, not only of this commission, but with the other commissions in terms that more closely regulate floodplain development, is that we're going to be looking at, and the applicant was required to assess what the potential impacts on wetland, watercourses, and other areas of resource. We're looking at alternatives to diminish the extent of the encroachments. Drainage impacts had to be assessed, water quality controls, And then demonstrate that they're complying with the flood damage prevention regulations in terms of impact on flood rise as a result of doing the project. Is it going to cause an adverse impact in terms of changing the dynamics of the flood? Are the structures and features are going to resist flood damage? And they also, the commission is really charged also with evaluating the mitigative measures that have been proposed. It's important to note is I went through the process that they've done in terms of alternatives. Again, they were choosing between constructing a bridge or designing a culvert, and they went along with the culvert to try to reduce the amount of grade change, changing shoulders, changing road approaches, filling, impacts on trees. So the process really drew out the alternatives during the review. Also, the standards for bridges and culverts differ. Is that one requires you to have freeboard, the bridge, under the lowest chord. Others require you to have freeboard to the pavement elevation. But this culvert will pass the entire 100-year storm and will meet the design standards in the from the DOT that they follow. They did a hydraulic analysis, very detailed hydraulic analysis. What's the impact of this? They've demonstrated that by constructing this culvert, it will not cause a rise in flood heights. It will not change the dynamics of the flood that cannot be overcome by certain design elements. So the elevations, it will again pass the entire flood. They did their own study too and updated the impacts. And for the storms, it passes all the storms. Because of the enlarged hydraulic opening, there are some changes in velocities. So we had them look at velocities. You figure if you're squeezing water through a space this wide and all of a sudden you go through this wide, there'll be a change in velocity somewhere along the line, typically. So they carefully looked at those and have determined that in some spaces where there were changes, that the characteristics of the channel, the regraded channel, and the stabilization efforts are more than sufficient to prevent erosion and scour, which was one of the big issues. In other areas, they are utilizing some more significant stabilizing features such as boulders and riprap, etc. But the bottom line is no rise. Any adverse impact in terms of velocity impacts are being mitigated, but there's a close examination that's been provided, and both the engineers will go through that with you. One of the important things in doing bridges and culverts, and the many that I looked at over the years, is water handling, how they're going to construct it. They have a very concise plan of how they're doing it. They're actually going to construct a diversion pipe channel so you're digging in the driest conditions possible. That's typically the way they're doing. So they're actually using a pipe, divert the water with sandbags, very typical, making sure that choosing the pipe that's going to not result in any kind of adverse impacts in terms of velocities of an erosion. You build and using the culvert's also a very efficient way of doing it as opposed to a bridge. Less time with the opening, less time with it being impactful. They have a lot of very detailed information on the heights of the coffer dams and all those elements that are necessary. There's about 6 trees of size that are going to be lost as a result of the construction. Those trees, we had them identify them on the plans. They're using tree protection on the other trees that will be incorporated into the post-construction landscape. They are, I can report there's about, as reported by the engineer, about 120 square feet of wetland, 145 linear feet of water course, and 11,000 square feet of the upland review area will be temporarily or permanently impacted by the development. We've had certifications on all the elements about capable of withstanding the flood depths, pressures, velocities, so in the event of flood, that they be de minimis or no impact on the structures and features. Also provided a very concise drainage impact statement. No adverse impact as a result of the development of this. Grades are generally remaining essentially the same, except for some shoulders and some grading on the channels themselves. But there was no new drainage structures that have been requested or deemed to be needed as a result. Water quality, there was a sediment and erosion control plan. We already talked about the dewatering and the phasing. One of the things that you probably haven't seen before that we used often in reviews is they had developed a flood contingency plan where they're going to store and stockpile during the construction, but also where to listen, who's in charge in the event of a flood, where do you take those materials out, how do you abandon the site, even the temporary bases, as to minimize the potential for impacts. And that has all been spelled out in the document that's been attached to, and again, the thing is to, time of flood, maintain positive flows. Get the materials out. If things that cannot be moved easily, they have to be anchored in, but where to listen, who's in charge, how they do it has all been spelled out. Mitigation, again, they looked at, there's been recommendations from the Fisheries Department, these resting stations they've placed in there, et cetera. The type of material that's going to be reintroduced into the channel bottom has to meet certain criteria for a natural channel or natural bottom type. Again, they're doing tree protection, and they've also provided a native landscaping plan for the spaces of for the areas of the channel that they are regrading. So they're taking a very narrow and steep channel, often limited by walls, is that they're going to be doing some regrading, and it offers the opportunity to provide native grasses, and they have a landscaping plan with probably close to 50 plants that they're going to be installing there to stabilize the bank and improve the conservation values of the space. So in this particular application, we've touched on all the things that the commission identified and staff has identified, and the applicant is here and they can expand on it, and I'm available to answer questions if need be.
Thank you. Darren, why don't you identify yourself and for the record?
Good evening. My name is Darren Ostefine. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works. Held that position for 24 years. Public hearing, I'm a professional engineer also. With me tonight is Joe Canis. He's also a registered professional engineer. He's with the firm of Ty & Bond, familiar to you, I'm sure, well-known in Darien for land use. Also with us is Jonathan Ives, a structural engineer from Ty & Bond. Maybe you don't know him. He's also a registered professional engineer. I'll give you a brief time history very quickly. Summer 2022, our maintenance crews noticed a sinkhole in the road. We inspected it, found the abutment had a problem, hired a structural engineer right away, found out that the abutment had settled, and we immediately found out that the bridge was supposed to be founded on piles. There were no piles. Nobody knows why, but it was a long, long time ago. We installed a steel plate over the north side of the bridge, probably noticed, spanning both sections as a safety net in case the slabway cracked or the abutment settled further. We put cones and barricades to kind of keep people off of the northernmost part of the bridge. We installed rock ballast and armoring underneath the abutment, prevent further scour, prevent further material from being removed underneath the footings. In addition, we wanted to support the abutment that remained there to some degree. Summer 2023, a whole year later, we had the wetlands delineated, survey prepared. We went after state funding. Before then, we received the state funding at 50%. We shared proposed easements, limits with the 3 affected property owners. They're here this evening. That takes us to autumn 2023. We received state approval from the state of Connecticut DEEP, also the Federal Army Corps of Engineer. On December 12th, 2023, we held a public meeting in auditorium here in the town hall, so all the affected residents could be brought up to speed, have a chance to express their concerns, etc., answer their questions. That brings us to spring 2024, where we are in the this EPC meeting. So I'll just mention that because you probably haven't met Jonathan before. He's a learned structural engineer who's done a number of bridges like this, especially ones that where it's necessary to be bucolic, like for example in this 2-acre zone. So he's shown staff many examples of stone-faced bridges with wood guide rails, and I think you might even get to see some of them tonight, and or at least see what we're proposing here. If you don't have any questions of me?
Yeah, I got a quick one.
Sure.
Assuming this all goes through, how long are you going to close Hanson Road for?
I think we said 9 months. I'm pretty sure we got permission from we already have permission from the Legal Traffic Authority. The police gave us permission to do the detour. And I'm going to guess 9 months. I'm not positive about that.
Okay, just your best guess right now, okay, is 9 months. Okay, no, no, it's not going to change anything. I'm just curious because I use Hanson Road, so
we have a lot of
from a very
projects.
personal.
We have a lot of projects going on. No, I'm going to take that back. Our original plan was to be done with this project by August, so a lot less than 9 months. But I can't say from the time we close it to the time we reopen it. I'll say 6 months, less than 6 months.
Okay. Thank you.
Good guess.
Thank you.
So Stony Brook's a big flooder, downstream, a lot of flooding. And here we have a spot where if you could figure out how to detain the water so it backed up onto the grass of the golf course, to slow it down at that location. It's one of the few places you could do that. I don't know engineering if that can possibly be done. But instead of now ripping it through by enlarging it, couldn't you have some on these major storms, have it back up that way so it slows it down going down the rest of the way?
You're going to hear from our engineer talk about hydraulics in great detail.
Okay.
I believe you'll hear that the velocity might be more, but the flow rate and the elevation of the river downstream is not going to be more. Now, from our perspective, the things that we have to look at
It's totally different, yeah, because you're trying to get a roadway done right. But I'm saying, yeah, this is an interesting spot, because very seldom do you have an open space where if there's a way, you could hold it back for a certain period of time until the storm drops down.
That's true.
I don't know if it can be done, and there are ramifications, probably, like you say, it could be jetting through too fast, but it's one of those few spots in town.
That's true, but it's
Okay.
not our property.
Right, no, but it wouldn't ruin it, it would just load it up with water for a while. Anyway.
Our
I'll-
charge
I'll
is
let the
to
engineers
not change
decide.
anything. First, do no harm. We don't want to hurt anybody downstream, and we can't hurt anybody upstream, too. I think the country club would object to us backing water up onto their property to,
Okay.
so we had to walk a tightrope. You're going to hear, we changed the size of the culvert. but we were cognizant always of, you can't make the water any higher, you can't dump more water, has to be the same. We're looking for the same elevation. We don't want to flood somebody who wasn't flooded before, upstream or downstream. And,
But if they didn't mind, last time, no, then I'll stop.
what's that?
If they didn't mind, you could actually reduce the water going downstream for a certain period of time, possibly, right?
Maybe if you looked at Weaver, okay, and,
Yeah,
and they have,
Yeah,
they have.
and I'm just throwing that out.
They
I
have
know,
a
I'm just,
huge-
we're trying to find answers for this
Oh,
flooding.
just north of that, they have a huge,
They have a big pond.
a huge pond that they use for irrigation. Well, when I caddied there, they used to use it for irrigation. I haven't been there. And so,
Yeah.
so you sit there and say, well, if there was a big storm coming, they could release the water prior, knowing that it was gonna fill up when the rains came. Okay? I mean, but they could do that, well, if the bridge was
That
full,
may
they could
actually
do it now.
happen,
Okay,
but we
that's
have no
not the
control
water.
over that.
Right.
What you just suggested may actually happen, but we have no control over
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And,
so,
um,
that's a whole separate discussion.
and we certainly couldn't take that into account in our model.
No.
Our engineers did not consider
No, you
anything
can't
like
do
that.
No. Anyway,
Was that out of the scope? I think I was out of the scope of our
Yeah.
department.
Are these preformed culverts, or are they
Yeah.
formed with tube and then you pour concrete?
It's
How
gonna
does
be,
that work?
if you could picture a big concrete square box
Yeah.
with no ends on it. And I don't know how many sections to get across the road, 2 or 3.
And then just-
You drop them. First, we're gonna put a cutoff wall in so water doesn't go underneath it and undermine this thing again. So there's going to actually be a concrete wall that's buried. And then the box will sit on that, so water is forced to go through the culvert.
And are they half moon or
No, square.
total tunnel?
This will be a rectangle.
A rectangle.
Yeah.
So,
It's gonna look like a bridge.
so when we talk about fishes in here, if there are fish, I don't know if there are fish, how is the bottom of the culvert treated to maintain a natural condition as the fish go through the culvert area?
It's a good question. I think you're gonna hear from our engineer
Good.
that there's going to be
Yeah,
some
it's gonna fill
natural
back
stream
in
bed
and
material
boulders.
in the bottom.
okay,
So
Thank you.
one way,
I
get
think
out
I
the,
better get out of
you-
his way.
get out of the way there.
You done?
Yeah.
Thank you.
State your name for the record, please.
My name's John Ives. I'm with Ty and Bonds, Senior Project Manager. Just plug in here.
Are these on?
It
Hey, Rick, is this one on?
should be. David, but me, do it again.
New profession for you, well.
Yep.
Good. No signal.
All right, so in this presentation, I'll touch on existing conditions. Some of that you've already heard. Hydraulic considerations, proposed conditions, and I'll go over our key plans. Starting with existing conditions, as Rick mentioned, Hanson Road runs east-west, Stony Brook north-south. The affected property owners, 3 adjacent property owners, Weber Country Club to the north, and to the south, there are 88 and 100 Hanson Road. Which is right in the middle of the screen. Existing bridge supports 2 lanes of traffic on a 30-foot road. There are some substandard timber railings at the bridge and approaches. Uh, Rick and Darren both mentioned the road plate at the bridge. Traffic is currently restricted from the north fascia, the upstream fascia. Existing structure is a cast-in-place concrete deck supported on stone masonry abutments with cast-in-place concrete footings. It is founded on soil. I researched record plans when we started the project. The bridge was designed to be supported on piles. The as-built plan shows piles omitted, rest of structure constructed according to plan. Moving under the bridge, the scour is currently about 6 feet deep under the structure. Both abutments have been undermined. The west abutment, where you see the arrow in this photo, was cracked and settled. Some of the material from behind the abutment either came through that crack or filtered out beneath the footing where it was undermined, just exacerbating the problem. Since that happened, DPW, and Darren specifically, has been monitoring the bridge on a weekly basis, measuring the height of that crack to ensure that the settlement is not, say, accelerating. Here's a closer look at the crack at the west abutment. Structure evaluation, as Rick mentioned, is 2. It's in critical condition based on the abutment crack and the undermining and active scour. This is the lowest condition rating that is permissible while keeping the bridge open to traffic. It is safe with constant monitoring by DPW, which occurs on a weekly basis and after storm events. Immediately downstream of the bridge, there's an Aquarian water main that is exposed above the stream bed that was constructed below the stream bed, but the stream has washed out through here. It's scoured about 2 feet through the whole area and up to 6 feet deep under the bridge where the channel is constricted the most. Here's a view of the downstream channel. This photo was taken in February of 2023. Looks the same today. As you can see, it's a wooded area. There are some cobbles and boulders, and then some undermining along the will be the west channel bank. Here's a look upstream. This photo was taken from the southernmost footbridge and the fairway of Weeburn. You can see some undermining along the channel banks. It's about a foot or so of undermining all the way up to the pond. And just as a frame of reference, here's a look downstream from that footbridge toward our Hanson Road Bridge. You can see in February of 2023, this area was not manicured lawn. The area around the bridge did have some either rough or natural vegetation. This photo was taken in April 2023, and after some manicuring done by the private property owner upstream, you can see the sod along the channel banks. That undercutting has been filled in. August 2023 photo, it shows Stony Brook at the extreme low water condition where there's barely any water running under the bridge. And you can see that the sod comes down to the water course, even at the extreme low water. And then in January 2024, this is close to an ordinary high water event where the channel is filled up quite a bit. Um, Again, looking upstream, our wetland flagging was done prior to the maintenance by the golf course. It's just provided as a frame of reference for the plantings that are shown in our plans. Some hydraulic considerations, as Rick mentioned, bridge is over a FEMA floodway. The original flood study was updated by letter of map revision a few years back. When we started this project, we did our own analysis. Joe, our certified floodplain manager and principal hydraulic engineer, reviewed the area based on the updated survey. And he found that the hydraulic analysis in the LOMAR, or letter of map revision, was unconservative, and that floodwaters were actually higher than what was shown in the published study. Based on his analysis, he recommended an 18-foot span structure, and that was necessary to achieve 0 rise in water surface elevation and 1 foot minimum of freeboard, which are hydraulic manual and permitting requirements, while reprofiling the stream bed to eliminate the scour hole beneath the bridge. So we are increasing the span length from about 14 feet to 18 feet. But we have to fill in the scour hole underneath the bridge, which is the source of our problems now. Currently, the stream bed just takes a dive under the existing structure, and that's how water is pushing through that opening. Joe's hydraulic analysis shows that currently Hanson Road overtops in front of 88 Hanson Road. With the 18-foot opening and reprofiled stream and regraded channel, all of that water will be contained in that structure under the road. The road will not overtop in front of 88 Hanson Road. So there is some flood mitigation benefit. This colored in figure kind of shows proposed conditions. Our box culvert in the middle, that's a precast piece. It's largely hidden unless you are standing in the stream. The culvert head wall and wing walls will be ashlar stone masonry faced. Be a very aesthetic structure. Beneath the culvert, as Darren mentioned, it will be a cutoff wall. So scour protection is provided by the floor of the culvert, which extends across the whole length of the culvert. The cutoff walls beneath the culvert, and there will be riprap in front of the cutoff walls and inlet and outlet. But that riprap will be depressed below natural stream bed material, so there will be 18 inches of natural stream bed material atop the riprap, providing a natural channel for fish. That is a requirement of permitting and Condot Fisheries, Connecticut DEEP Fisheries. Guide rail is proposed to be Merritt Parkway guide rail based on aesthetic considerations. Here's a look at our general plan. I realize the figure is small for many of you here. There's guide rail at the 4 corners of the structure. It's absolutely kept to the minimum length that is permissible by standard, and there's even some engineering judgment used to make it as short of a run as possible. And here you can see the rerouted water main. The water main will be rerouted beneath the culvert in the roadway rather than in the downstream channel. It will be protected by a casing pipe, and it will be also, that casing pipe will be in a additional concrete encasement that runs beneath the culvert. For our erosion and sediment control plan, we have a sedimentation control system around the entire project. We have anti-tracking pads at both approaches. so that construction vehicles coming in and out of the site are not making a mess of the road. Our construction will be done utilizing a bypass. We originally showed one large bypass pipe, but that bypass pipe had a high velocity at the outfall, so we used two smaller bypass pipes to provide more friction on the sides of the pipes for the area of water that's running through them. That slowed the water down, and the velocity out the outfall of the bypass pipes is less than the current 50 and 100-year design storms. So there'll be a cofferdam at the upstream and downstream ends of the bypass pipe, and all of the work to remove the existing structure and build the proposed structure will be done in the dry. And once the bypass pipes, once the culvert is constructed and most of the wing walls are constructed, we'll remove the bypass pipes, reroute flow through the channel, and finish construction of the upper portions of the retaining wall. Our site restoration plan includes natural stream bed material in the channel. So everything below the 2-year flood elevation will be natural stream bed material. There's a spec for that material that was developed by CONDOT and Connecticut DEEP that is used on all stream crossing projects. That is the spec we're using for the stream bed material. It should be erosion resistant and friendly to fish and other wildlife. The stream banks in the vicinity of the bridge will be planted with wetland grasses. This is it's called conservation seeding for slopes. Again, this is another CONDOT and Connecticut DEEP approved spec for wetland grasses. We also have shrub plantings along the channel banks. We have some replacement trees. So we are removing 6 large trees. 4 of them are alive, 2 are dead. We are showing 5 red maples and numerous shrubs, rhodosia dogwood and red chokeberry. The riprap that you see in the figure is depressed below natural stream bed material or below the planted slopes. And that's to provide measure of protection in the event that that stream bed material erodes away at the inlet and outlet. The outside of the wetland area will be restoring the turf at the golf course. The beginning of the plantings starts at one of the twin trees on the golf course that should be outside the limits of the fairway and out of the limit of, should be an area that doesn't impact use of the golf course. And then we have some outlet protection for a couple of small pipes that outlet into Stony Brook. That's the only area that we have exposed riprap. It is modified riprap, which is the smallest size of riprap, which is engineered based on the size of the pipes and the maximum amount of water that can come out of those pipes. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Carolyn? Would you like to?
Sure. Thank you. It's a great presentation. So in your email dated March 5th, you had mentioned that you've discussed additional trees that may require removal of DPW and will update the project plans accordingly. Is that in addition to the 6 trees?
No,
Or does
that's-
that
that's been
includes
done,
them?
yes.
Oh, that includes them. Okay, great, thank you. Also, everything related to the bridge withstands all the flood, and so forth. I just wanted to talk about, let's see, the freeboard, because I know that it has to be a minimum of 1 foot according to the Connecticut Department of Transportation's drainage manual. And it's actually been calculated to be 1.7 feet. That's for I think it was the 100-year storm.
Correct.
What about when like in the past couple of years, we've had a few storms that are greater than that. I'm just wondering, going forward in the future, that storms have been increasing in intensity and so forth, would it be prudent to increase that more than that, or do you see that as being sufficient? In other words, if the water comes over it, is it going to be able to withstand the flooding of coming over the road?
Joe, would you like to?
Sure.
State your name, please.
For the record, Joseph Canis. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, also a certified floodplain manager. And the conduct criteria is 1 foot of freeboard over the 100-year storm.
Right.
And you're absolutely correct. Storms are gaining intensity. They're also becoming more frequent. So in what used to be the 100-year storm maybe 10, 15 years ago is now really like the 50-year storm. So your question, I actually have to look it up. So I might, if you don't mind, just delay a response to because I just have to look something up. But we did run the 500-year event as well,
Okay.
if I recall correctly. So I can get you what that elevation is versus the roadway.
So for the existing bridge, when we did have that 500-year storm, a couple of them, I think in 2021, did the floodwaters overtop the road then?
My understanding, it didn't overtop, it came very close. I don't know, Darren, what your experience was.
We tend to focus on this area, the downtown area, so we don't spend a lot of time in the 2-acre zone when we have a bad storm. But I think it's fair to say, I don't know if the bridge was overtopped, but the roadway was overtopped. It went around the bridge. Is it safe to say that?
Based on the profile of the roadway,
Right.
it's higher east and lower to the west. In fact, further west. So it's basically a tangent going east to west,
Okay.
downslope.
Okay.
And there's a lower area west with a separate drainage area north of the road that will overtop much worse than at Stony Brook.
Okay.
But I would expect, based on our analysis, for the roadway to have overtop not at the bridge, but just west of the bridge.
Okay.
I think when you open it up to the public, you're going to get an eyeball witness.
Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe
there's a
some
couple neighbors here
anecdotal-
that have lived there for some time, so
Yeah.
we can pick their brain.
And then I think I read somewhere that the current bridge was built in, I think, 1934 or somewhere. 36. Okay, so almost 100 years. What's the life expectancy of this newer construct?
So current standards are for 100-year,
Okay.
which is like, think about 100 years out.
Not my
Right.
None of us will be here, right?
Just
All
curious.
other things to worry about.
Right,
Yeah.
just curious how long the,
Culvert could last indefinitely with maintenance.
okay. Okay. I might have more questions, but I'm done
Okay,
now.
Jim?
I'll be the briefest one of anyone here tonight. We have a near 90-year-old failing bridge. Let's get started.
Yeah, but let's get started in the right way. So,
Well, that's clearly being done
no,
to me.
So my question is the overall goal that you had in mind when your design was put in place and the net result at the end of the day, that the same sort of volume will go through the culvert as existed with the old bridge, or was there some other objective?
To answer your question, at the end of the day, the same amount of flow will go through the bridge. It's just that it's just the speed at which it goes through changes. Right now, what happens in a storm event, it tends to back up behind the bridge because it's a somewhat of a restricted opening. So what you have is as that flow reaches the bridge, right, because it's starting to backwater, it slows down. And then as it goes to the bridge, at least more quickly, because there's less of a tailwater impact downstream, and it's it suddenly expands. Whereas with the wider opening, what's going to happen is you're not going to have that backing up effect, right? So it's the velocity on the upstream side of the bridge is actually going to get a little faster because you don't have that water backing up. And then downstream, it actually slows down a small bit because you're letting, you've opened that up a little bit more, but the same volume goes through. If you liken it to a bridge, like imagine, the railroad going over Leroy Avenue, right? As you approach it, because it necks down, you tend to slow down and you tend to get some cars that, get closer to your bumper. And then when you get through, you can drive through a little faster because, it kind of regulates the flow through there. What's going to happen with this is, you imagine that bridge getting a little wider, right? And you're going to be able to, move through at a constant speed. So that's really what's happening here.
So that's at the structure, but we do have the overtopping now to the west of the bridge. So that water's, the same amount of water is coming from upstream and going downstream, but instead of that overtopping going through the lawn and right around the house at 88 Hanson Road, will be contained at the stream.
Thank you.
And to answer Commissioner Bain's question about the 500-year elevation, it's 113. So the road's up around 114 and change, so probably about 0.7 feet of freeboard
Okay.
on the 500.
No questions.
No questions? Rick, do you have anything? No? Okay, let's open up to the public. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Chad Email at 88 Hanson Road. I think we're probably amongst the homeowners the most affected here because we're up, the stream does have a slightly different elevations on either side. We're a little bit on the lower side than Zosga, who's here as well.
Could you point on the map where you are, on the aerial there?
We're right here.
Okay, got
So
it.
we're slightly lower here, and I'll touch on where the stream, what happens in high water events, because obviously we've had a few more. I'll point out, it was mentioned that it's a little more natural downstream from the bridge. That is true until about right here. When you get there, stream makes a little S-turn here. There's a forebay on the property off Linda Lane right there, and then there's a dam on the back end of that, creating a pond. Several years ago, there was work done to raise the levels of both of those. We came to town and asked Mr. Ginsburg. He said that was approved, I guess, and permitted. Apparently to restore it to original elevation. That would tell you the flooding along the stream, along our property, absolutely increased in a meaningful way after that work was done. The question as to could the water back up on the Weburn in high water events, there's nothing we can do to stop that. It absolutely does do that. It backs up all the way to the pond, fills in that whole area with quite a, what you can kind of see from the pictures they show was this, the property does come down like this on the Weburn side and then dip down into the stream, so that part does fill back in. The water in extreme high water events has come over Hanson Road a little bit, not, I would say not gushing, kind of splashing over as it rushes up against the bridge and kind of diverts around, but mostly on our side because we're a little bit lower. So, a couple of things that were said tonight, they were a little different than what we've been represented to us. I think the last plan we saw had a 5-foot diameter single pipe coming under Hanson Road from the Weburn side, under the road and across our property. I understand that's been changed to two smaller pipes, so that was something new. We've got concerns on our side. First of all, we absolutely understand the bridge needs to be replaced. We agree. We want it to be done the right way. We want it to be done with as little impact on our property as possible. I don't think anyone can understand that. And to the extent that we have to negotiate an easement with the town, we know we're in the process of trying to figure that out, but there's a lot of considerations there. But in terms of the bridge, my one concern is if there's going to be, basically what I'm hearing is natural riverbedding put on top of the bottom of the culvert. The first extreme water event comes along, that will be gone, and it will be in the stream along our property or in our backyard, one or the other. And I can show you where the sediment has settled in our yard from the extreme water events, and it clearly happens. So I would have a hard time seeing something sitting on a rigid surface, soft material sitting on a rigid surface staying there, because that water comes through very fast at that bridge. So I'd be curious about how long the anticipation is that would stay there. I just need to understand what that is. If it's that soft material or is it something else? Might be great for the fish, but it might not be great for
Property owners.
material scattered through the stream downstream. So we do have some concerns about that. When Darren said 9 months, our eyes opened up. We thought it was 4, so we had some questions about that. But again, most of our concerns are centered around the easement, and the town's asking for a permanent easement and a temporary easement on our property. And when they show the picture of the guide rail, we have the wooden guide rail, not the stone wall on the other side. We'd like that to be a stone wall. It'd be a little nicer on our property. We have a property with no fencing or guide rail on the front now. We'd rather that not be the case. But if it has to be the case, we want to just be compensated for that properly. So we do have some concerns with Wilder's here to helping us to sort this out through the town, and he'll like to have a few things to say as well.
Yeah. Walden?
Wilder Gleason, representing the Himmels at 88 Hanson Road. I've been involved in this project for several months, and back in February, I asked for a copy of all the plans, and I got the plans March 14th. Now, I know Darren has been out, and I understand there's a rationale for that. I directed that to him. So the Himmels were on vacation. I've got a massive pile of materials that I haven't been able to review with them. And we need time to look at it and evaluate it and come up with questions and concerns. I note that the landscaping plan is totally different from what Darren had suggested would be done for the Himmels. There is going to be a 100-foot guide rail. It's not a guardrail anymore, it's a guide rail. It's going to be wooden, it'll be bucolic, but it's ugly. And it's going to be right in the front yard of the Himmels on their property. And there's no attempt whatsoever in the landscaping plan that we have here to screen that, as has been promised to the Himmels since they first got involved in this. So what you've got is a disconnect between what the town DPW is telling the neighbors and what the engineers are doing. We've got 50 plants. We need 50 plants to screen that tree, that guide rail. I looked at the grading plan and compared it to the topographic survey. I don't see contours on the topographic survey that allow me to compare what exists today in the stream bed adjacent on the Himmel property south of the branch and what is proposed. It appears there's a channel widening. I haven't had time to look at the materials to see how much material is being removed to widen that channel. There are questions about the volume of fill. They're going to bring in massive amounts of stream bed material, and they have to stockpile them somewhere. That's what their materials say. Where is that stockpile? It's not shown that I could see anywhere on the site plan. Is it on our property in the temporary easement? The Weeburn Country Club is having a chain link fence to define the construction area. There doesn't appear to be any definition on the Himmel property as to where the construction area is. and there's a concern that construction would encroach beyond the easement areas that the town seeks to take. Those are sort of basic things that have been addressed that I've been able to observe in my quick review of the plans and discussions with the Himmels. There is apparently a road closure sign that is posted, and I didn't see this, but I'm advised by Mrs. Himmel that there's a road closure sign that is supposed to be at the neighbor's property. Well, when you get a road closure sign, you go beyond that and you turn in the next driveway. Guess whose driveway that's going to be? The Himmel driveway. The last thing they want on this construction project is not only to have to give an easement to the town, but then have everybody coming down Hanson Road turning in their driveway. These are the sorts of things that if we'd gotten these before, earlier, we could address, but we haven't had time to look at. And the devil's in the details, and the impact on the Himmels is going to be profound, and we'd like a month to look at this and come back to the town and, you know, see if we can work things out before the next, the continued hearing in this matter. And those are the tips, those are the high points. We haven't had an opportunity to really look at anything else.
Okay.
And the Himmels went to the information meeting in December. They've been assiduous in trying to work with the town on this, and I think Darren has in good faith tried to do what he can, but because of his illness or his absence, we didn't get the plans until recently, and I'd asked for them a month ago. Over a month ago.
Darren? Yeah, would you like to address his comments?
Thank you. Let's see. I have been the primary liaison between all of the neighbors. They've all been great. Forget the public meeting. I've met with them in their front yard on numerous occasions. No offense to Wilder, I don't know what he means by what I represented and what's on the plan. Simply untrue. My conversations with the Himmels have always been, tell us what you want, the town will do what you want, we'll make it a part of the project. Their biggest concern has been the guide rail. The reason we're taking a permanent easement, asking them for a permanent easement, is so that we can turn the guide rail in and shorten it, so we don't have to obey a stricter standard and carry it in front of their house where they would see it. We did everything we could to minimize the guide rail. In addition to that, I've told them, and I'll say it right here in public, we will do whatever you want. Tell us what plant you want. We will plant the plants right in front of that guide rail so that you can't see it from your front door. There are going to be tree removals. It's unavoidable. I think one of the trees is dead, but when we do the bypass piping around it, we are going to take down a couple large pine trees and 2 maple trees further back. And some of the scrub stuff, it wasn't picked up on the survey. But I want to say that again, I want to emphasize it. Whatever you want, mountain laurels.
Let's cut this short. Wilder's requesting a month, correct? Yeah, you said that you're correct, you're on record as requesting a month to review all of the materials, et cetera. So, you want to give them a month to review this?
Do I want to give them a month? I don't know if it's mine to give. I mean,
well, we as a commission can make that determination to say, which would take a vote of the commission, to sit there and say to...
if you need a month, take a month. I can tell you that I have been meeting with the Himmels and the other property owners long before Wilder got involved.
Mm-hmm.
So, unfortunately, he's late to the game. So if he needs a month, I can't stop you from giving it to him. I can tell you the administration's not going to be happy with me. We're up against a wall. We're trying to hit the summer season. We have conflicts with the Weber Country Club. We've been doing everything we can to try and finish by August, as I mentioned earlier. They have a huge event coming up then, and we have been doing everything we can to not interfere with the club's event. That includes trying to finish early, maybe putting some screening in. So if you need a month, I can't stop you from giving it to them. I don't know what other questions there would be. I'm agreeing to whatever planting they want. The guide rail has to stay. We can't avoid the guide rail. We just can't do that. As far as the stockpile, I mean, our engineers could address that, but the stockpile area is going to be in the road. The sign is going to be at Hummingbird Lane. We heard their concerns. We were cognizant of that, and we want to address that. On the other side of the bridge, number 100 Hanson has a driveway just past Linda Lane. And perfectly reasonable request. Somebody is going to drive by Linda Lane, and there's the driveway. What are they going to do? They're going to turn. So we agreed. We're going to block it off at Linda Lane, and it's going to say local traffic only. That way, nobody goes past the barricades except for the owner of 100 and our contractor. The other side is more problematic, I will agree, because it's a further distance, but we still plan to cut that off at Hummingbird Lane and stop people from coming all the way down until they have no other place to turn except in the Himmel's driveway. We're sensitive to
These are
that.
the sorts of things, if I'd had the plans, we could have discussed this and it would have been resolved. I've talked to the Himmels, if I can interrupt.
Please, can I stay here?
If we can have 2 weeks, I think that'll give us an opportunity to review these plans, discuss with Darren what's going on, and hopefully we come to some understanding. We would also need to have a landscape plan from your landscaper of what you want to screen, because I want to submit that to them. And naturally, there's always money, but that is not going to drive this.
Well, it's not my concern.
In terms, yeah, not your concern either.
Okay. Okay, I got, anything else?
Assuming you guys are willing to repair, come back in 2 weeks. I mean,
Yeah, well,
your
that's
schedule.
our regular meeting at that point in time.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
I can give away 2 weeks.
Happy Easter.
We're trying to meet you in good
I appreciate that.
and
I
halfway.
appreciate that. And if I could just add.
Okay, well, there's nothing really technical about the stream bed, et cetera, et cetera. There was mentioned by Mr. Himmel about the stream bed material going down on his property, et cetera.
If I may, I'll just address that quickly. The bottom of the culvert will have baffles in it to retain the stream bed material. So between the baffles and the spec for the material, should be able to keep the material within the culvert. So a baffle will be at some regular spacing, say 3 feet through the length of the culvert. There will be a short 1 foot high, probably 1 foot high by 8-inch wide wall that will be buried below the stream bed material. The stream bed material will come just over the top of that, so that should help retain the material within the culvert.
I'm not sure the guide rail or guardrail is in our purview to begin with. Isn't that a state standard?
The state standards do require end protection for what's called the blunt end of a bridge. So there's a wall along the approach walls and along the head wall of the culvert. So this wall is 3.5 feet tall and reinforced concrete covered by stone masonry facing. The idea with guide rail is that you're providing a transition so that you have, first you have larger spacing between posts, you have something that's flexible, and you're going to something that is considered, for all intents and purposes, immovable. And so if you have just this immovable wall that is considered a blunt end, and if you have a vehicular impact, it's much worse for the occupants of the vehicle. You provide a smooth transition from something that's flexible to that immovable object. It's safer for vehicles. And that is required at all bridges where the parapet or wall is within the clear zone for traffic.
So the only issue is, and this is for the town to negotiate, but I don't see it as an EPC issue, is the screening that goes from the end of the guardrail to the
Right, so
abutters.
they're looking for
property to
some,
screen.
so this is seen from the yard of 100 Hanson Road. They have a nice stone wall along the road. So much of the guardrail or guide rails will be screened already by the wall. At 88 Hanson Road, they don't have a stone wall along the road. There will be guide rail attached to the bridge. It will be in the forested corner of the property, but will be visible from the property. And so they're looking for some screening plantings in front of the guide rail, which we're amenable to providing.
Right.
Just for reference, I'll show that area in the photos. If I just go back. Do I have that? This is the wooded corner that just extends along the road. If I go back to the aerial view,
Is that portion of the?
this is where the guide rail is proposed, this wooded area here. It terminates before the area where the lawn is directly adjacent to the Hanson Road.
Is that wetlands?
There are wetlands, fringe wetlands, narrow fringe of wetlands all along Stony Brook. There's nothing really, they're barely outside the limits of the water course.
Got it, I understand.
And it's got a 50, the upland review. is
I understand, it's in the.
Right. And the Stony Brook upland review is 100 feet. And those areas are
The
marked.
fence is a safety issue that's dictated by the state, okay, as I view it. So it's a health and safety issue dictated by the state. It's got to be, they have to deal with it. Now, the shrubbery, trees, et cetera, that Mr. Himmel would like and will have his landscaper work on, that's between the town and it. I'm not sure how much that has to deal with EPC.
I mean, those are kind of, you know, and I don't want to diminish the value of it. However, if there was an additional planting put in, there was, it doesn't affect the outcome of what decision you're going to make.
Yep.
I think it's important to recognize two things here, is all the technical, the real important technical issues have been addressed.
Mhm.
You know, flood rise, velocities, you know, wetland impacts, gradient impacts. They've talked about where they're putting the storage and stockpile. All those things have been addressed. I just want to remind you too, they still have to go to planning and zoning. And again, it's going to be a rehashing of some of these issues, but with their own little nuance on how they approach it. But, so there's another bite of the apple here.
Sure.
That will take place at some point
I'm
down,
okay with 2 weeks.
you know, another 2 weeks away.
Just because I was going to say, one of the issues is.
Can I interject if I could? I didn't see any stockpile area on the plants. Now, I haven't had adequate time to look at them, but, and the volume of material that you're bringing in for the stream bed, what's the volume? Where's it going to be placed? If there is a stockpile area, is there a stockpile on the plans that you have? Do you have a
Normally do
stockpile for
not
that
show
material?
stockpile areas on.
No. Do you have construction parking? I mean, is that going to be in this area? Because I don't know what's going on. That may be P and Z issues. Are you going to P and Z on this?
Yes,
Okay. It would
that's a
seem-
P and Z issue.
Okay, those may be P and Z issues. The changes to the slopes of the channel, that is clearly within your jurisdiction. I'm not sure I understand what's going on there. From this plan, the grading plan that we have here, these are new contours. The existing topographic survey doesn't give you existing contours. I can't look at that. Do we know what the cut and fill is there? Is there a report that gives us that?
The existing contours are shown on the current plans and we'll provide you with those.
They're shown on this is the site restoration plan.
We have a grading plan that shows.
Stand up, please, for the podium.
I mean, I just,
Yep. All right.
We will provide the Himmels with a grading plan that shows all existing and proposed contours. They are on the current plans, existing grades and proposed.
okay. Right. Given the size, I couldn't read them and look at them on Thursday, so I can't.
Okay. No.
He gets 2 weeks to review it. Is that
Okay.
the message? Darren's point?
I see one other neighbor, Mrs. Osgood. Would you like to comment?
No, I have no comments.
Okay.
I'm just here to listen.
Okay. All right, then. I think you're okay with 2 weeks, Darren?
I am.
Okay.
We have a lot of easement issues to work through with
Yeah,
the three property
but
owners.
from a technical
Not your issue,
perspective,
I know.
from a technical perspective, I think they've addressed a lot of the concerns. That was a great presentation.
We'll lead up 2 weeks.
Okay, we'll give Walter 2 weeks, but in 2 weeks, this is a safety issue, so I wanna, I don't want EPC to be seen as, stopping this from,
The other thing I would say-
because, I drive over Hanson, I drive over that bridge. And, after seeing those photos, I'm gonna think twice, okay? I worry about, Jesus, if, the garbage trucks, heavy vehicles going over that, man.
I would
But
just have to
I'm glad
say-
it's being inspected, thank you, Ed Gentile. Jerry?
You're not gonna be granting 2 weeks. You're going to go to April 3rd, and you're gonna conclude the hearing perhaps at April 3rd, and you're gonna vote in May. I mean, I feel, in this case, they spent a lot of time addressing the real meaty technical issues. A lot of these things, I mean, great, I get it, that, they want time to review, plantings, landscape schemes.
Temporary storage, et cetera, that's a real issue, okay? And that affects the neighbor. I can appreciate that. If I have to call a special meeting, in April, we'll do it in April. But, just to push this along. When's P&Z?
Couple
We plan to
weeks.
make the application before the end of the week.
Okay.
So that's not gonna get heard until sometime in May, right?
I don't know the schedule offhand, but
I think tomorrow
you
is the
would.
deadline for filing with P and Z for the April hearing.
Okay. So, if you say it must be true.
Well, not always. I make mistakes. So are we continued to the?
No, we're letting Rick do his thing here too. Would you guys be opposed to the meeting to,
It's good.
April? We can't do it April 3rd, we can do it 2 weeks later? Yep. Okay. Rick, that's what we'll do. I think I have a consensus here that we'll have a motion now to keep the hearing open. Okay, you got 2 weeks, and then I'll, in 2 weeks after that, I'll have a special meeting to move this along, because I don't want APC, I mean, I don't know if the public's seen that, with the whole thing's coming out like that. Wow. That's, critical level 2. I hate to see critical level 1. And anyway, thank you. Thank you for the great presentation, because it made those issues very, very clear in my mind. So, okay, so I need a motion to keep the public hearing open.
And continue it.
I'll make that motion.
To continue the hearing?
Mr. Chairman, that we continue the public hearing, which we've been discussing for EPC application 05, 2024, with respect to 0 Hanson Road, the Hanson Road Bridge.
Second that motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, there's no new business, there's no piece of old business, EPC 36-2023, 670 Howard Tree Ridge Road, DACG2 LLC. to maintain a deer fence and install landscaping in and proximate to wetlands and watercourses. Property lines along the south side of Hollow Tree Ridge Road, approximately 650 feet west of Ox Ridge Lane, and is identified as map 7, lot 50. The zone is R2 and is approximately 3.158 acres. The commission members have received a copy of the resolution.
Yes. I took in the comments concerning some of the landscaping enhancements. I've already initiated conversations with the landscape designer. And if you recall last month's meeting, the result was to craft a resolution for consideration at this month's meeting. And I've done that, and I'm available to answer any questions.
You have a copy, you have a copy?
Yeah, so Rick, the word appropriate is in there quite a bit. And that does concern me, like, who's, you're appropriate, or they're appropriate, or how do we decide what's appropriate?
Well, I think it's going to be, if you're leaving up to staff, it's going to be staff appropriate. So,
Maybe you should say that, staff appropriate.
Yeah, to be approved by staff.
yeah.
I have no problem with
Well,
that.
there were 7 that were enumerated in the original 2021 EPC approval, so why wouldn't we just say a minimum of 7?
Because I think that you run the risk of overdoing it in terms of landscaping there. When we have a very good natural, I mean, you have evergreen background, fence, they're willing to put in boulders, and you're gonna fit some number of red maple in there. It may be prudent to come up with, you know, 2 red maple on the end, 2 on the other end, and so get that lower layer of shrub planting with your ground cover. So there's an immense amount of planting in the back. Maybe the original plan
So they are
wasn't
amenable to
appropriate.
putting the boulders in addition
Yes.
to, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, when the original EPC approval was granted in 2021, it was because of, they had done some regrading and taken out trees. How many trees were taken out? We don't have access to that application.
No, I don't know.
But I mean, if it's not any longer appropriate to put 7 there, let's say it's appropriate to put 4, or you know, you'd say
Right.
2 on the end, 1 in the middle, 2 on the, maybe they could put them, I mean, that's a wet yard. I mean, it's a wet property. I mean, wouldn't it,
Well, I think
Yeah.
you want to make it purposeful, the installation.
yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Well, I mean, yeah, okay, all right, so I staff approval would be fine, I think.
Unless, you know, maybe appropriate does mean by staff. I'm just throwing that out
No,
there.
no.
Yeah.
no,
It
let's
may
be
be wondering
specific.
a little bit.
Let's be specific.
Yeah,
Staff.
yeah.
Or just
no,
say Rick, whatever
Right,
Rick
let's not-
says is good, and I'm with that.
Because if it's appropriate, it might be left up
No,
to
no,
the
it's-
landscape
okay.
architect,
No,
and
I
he
don't
might
want
think
appropriate.
one.
Well,
Staff
well,
appropriate.
yeah, but
To be
what-
approved,
the
anything
condition
should be approved
says-
by staff.
Okay.
it does
that's
say
it.
all final plans and reports shall be subject to the review and approval of the EPD staff
Okay,
prior to start of any site activity and issuance of
There we
zoning
go.
building permits.
Right.
Nice.
there we go.
Nice.
Okay, I'm done. I'm
I
done.
like it to be said again.
Okay. All right. well,
You're right, it does say that, but doesn't
We have
hurt
to go out and review it at some point
Yeah.
anyway, so.
Yeah.
Hey, we read it. We read it.
I read it.
We read it.
All right. Anybody else have anything?
No.
Can I have a motion to approve EPC 36-2023? Jim?
I hesitate to do it because
You have typos?
in all our many discussions, one thing we haven't said to each other is when an applicant agrees to something prior conditional approval, in one of Rick's very good documents, it says upon the initiation of the activities authorized herein, he agrees to comply with the terms and conditions. And it may be, this approval may be revoked or suspended if the applicant or assigns, or his assigns, fail to comply with the terms and provisions. Yet here we go again. It's kind of like a test of,
Yeah.
it's a test of, don't ask for permission.
Right.
Just
Ask for
get some
forgiveness.
forgiveness. And
Right.
by the way, your forgiveness is what you went out and did without approval we're now being kind of backed into a corner to approve.
Yeah.
But the only thing
I
that
think it's making us look a little silly.
Yeah,
I think you got a
agree.
better planting plan, substantially better under this review than the, what was it, 12 evergreens and 7 red maples that are placed literally along the back of the property. Here you have tree, shrubs, and ground covers that are native, you know, well, arborvitae.
Yeah.
But there was some number of, but they went up, they bulked up the number of trees. If you were going and getting a lesser planting plan, then I would completely agree with you. Under this circumstance, it's a substantially better planting plan, and it's taking care of the
pocket.
the pocket of
Yeah.
wetlands as well. So,
That's
Which
again,
wasn't in the
mice removal,
21?
that's
they,
all.
what's that?
The pocket wetland is what is being improved there? They're
Oh,
just
they're
taking
putting a
out-
ton of plantings in,
Okay.
like 35 feet,
35 feet back,
Yeah.
they're putting in, I think, hundreds of plantings.
yeah.
Because it's in the front of the house.
And boulders, they're gonna put boulders
They're
around.
gonna put boulders and the back has the fence, it's gonna have boulders and plants. I would agree with you if it was going in the opposite direction, that it wasn't as, but if you go there and now they want something, we come up with a real plan that was developed by a landscaping professional and it makes it better from a conservation perspective, I think that's a win.
I can go along with you.
Yeah.
With respect, Rick, if you put a plan in front of us to approve, and we approve that plan, and then you take liberties with it and drop a fence here and do whatever you want over there, it's kind of a circuitous route to, you know, doesn't
If
feel,
the applicant
doesn't
goes and takes
feel great.
liberties, yeah.
It doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And
Stick
almost,
to game plan. This is the application you put in. We have it in black and white on all of our conditional approvals. If you don't do what you said you're gonna do, we could revoke your permit. Now, start from scratch.
But in
I
most
heard
cases,
you.
they've already done it.
Yeah, they-
But
That's
don't
the problem.
forget,
And luckily, he's now checking them out, so we're now starting to slap them a little.
Don't forget, when the house was built, it didn't have an EPC approval at all. It was because they were staying 50 feet away. You've already granted that approval for, begging for forgiveness the first time. But it was approved with a plan that is substantially substandard to what's being there
but
now.
maybe
God,
what
and-
Jim is saying is at some point, maybe there needs to be some kind of repercussion when people don't, you know?
Yeah.
In other words, not just like, okay, you
Oh.
did this, so,
Oh, you improved your planning plan, so, okay, you stuck a fence
because
out
it
there.
encourages other people to do the same thing.
We've got other cases of this. We had one of these at our last meeting.
Yeah, but
We
it's
have
really
an-
hard unless they're going out for another application.
We
That's
have
the
a
biggest
neighbor,
problem.
I won't mention the address, that hasn't touched this drainage channel, hasn't touched it, but they're gonna be putting some serious homes over there. And we're not finding we're not, and maybe that's not what we want. I need the chairman to weigh in on this. Maybe if it says we can revoke your permit, but we never do it,
But what do, in this particular case, what do we gain by revoking the permit? Because that, you
no,
know,
I'm not, I just want to see us live by the letter,
Yeah,
the letter
I
of the
agree.
law we're writing. And we got people that are, I don't blame them, it's human nature. The guy's building a beautiful home, he's gonna fence out his backyard because he got 1 or 2 deer running through it. And the next thing you know, it's, you know,
But by the-
we're gonna agree to it because, oh, he already did it, but he's gonna give us 22 more native plants. It just feels like
Well,
an
strict-
odd way to get there.
I think your issue is with strict enforcement. When we say this has to be done, it should be done in that.
In accordance with the
and Rick
approved
said,
plan.
just do what you said you were gonna do, okay? And, Rick and I have had conversations about things like that, right? Rick, that said, hey, people should do what they think they're gonna, what they should do.
What they represented to this commission that
And
they
to
were
be,
going.
I mean, it's one of the things that all of these things have, is a series of diagrams that says, we relied on these, and this is what you're gonna do, and this is what you said you're gonna do. So if I took somebody, I mean, we're never gonna do this, but if I took somebody in front of a hearing and said, hey, you said you were gonna do this, 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 and this by this approval, and you didn't, who's at fault? Who's at fault? And so,
And what I'm,
yeah,
one of the things that's in my, what got me started on this thing was this 670 Hollow Tree Ridge, and it made me think of other recent events where
Yeah.
the applicant has taken some liberties. And guess what? Went skied right around our blade and got what he wanted anyway. There was another,
Middlesex Road where we chopped down some big trees,
you know,
okay? That was one where, maybe Mary Ann Road. I mean, those trees look freshly cut to me. I think
Yeah,
that
I've
they
got
do.
pictures.
they did.
Oh, geez. I should have guessed, right?
Oh, you-
But you sit there and you go, hey, that was one of the things, the guy's gonna, we'll see what happens here.
You've mentioned many times, and I won't belabor this, that, townspeople talk. Guy's building his house. You know what I did? I pushed the fence back 25 feet so I had more lawn for my children to play on that was not in conformity with my original plans. But that EPC commission, they're a bunch of softies.
Yeah, no, but the issue is, if someone were to build a fence, I don't necessarily know. How do we know unless a neighbor reports it? Because we don't go and inspect how many homes are there in town, right? We just don't. And so, how do you do that? How do you
I
go
mean,
around and
it's Rick's
inspect?
and his good
You can
team.
only inspect what is reported, or if you say, hey, I see a violation on such and such a road, they report it in, Woody goes out, right? Or you go out and you inspect and go, all right. But otherwise, you don't know.
You don't, but
Only on these applications, because Rick.
Well, actually, I tell you, I go
Rick has
to,
been
I go to
doing a
vast,
much more active
the
Rick
job.
vast
Rick-
majority of
Rick's doing the light.
the projects.
You're going out to see what's happening.
Yeah, and I have to tell you that we are now light years ahead of what was happening previously. There were no inspections before.
There was, I'll put in a curtain drain, no curtain drain. I'll put into this, I'll put into that. Where's this supposed to
I'll
flow?
build a bridge with pilings.
Well, you know what though? That's not an exaggeration.
Oh, I got you.
And it happens today too.
I understand.
Again, even when I did a dock recently. It was 4 levels of inspection. I went out and looked at it, I got a certification from the engineer. The first thing I did, went right to the absence of the footing that was supposed to hold it in place. But, so now, there's substantially greater inspection, and you probably heard about that too, and holding people's feet to the fire and making them do what they're
And
expected
thanks
to
to
do.
you for that and your
Yeah,
team.
no, I
That's
think
happening.
you're on top of it, which is,
So,
the word will get
If you're
out.
catching these things,
but you're going to get you're going to get applications where somebody did something and they're gonna seek forgiveness for it. They're gonna seek to get a permit for it.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
get it.
you're gonna get
That's-
those.
that's been going
They
on for
can't,
years, yeah.
you can't prevent somebody from filing an EPC permit application after the fact.
sorry.
You don't have to grant it.
No, it's a good point.
Listen, you still have to make the motion to approve it.
That's ironic, isn't it? I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the Environmental Protection Commission's permit
Tough crowd.
to conduct regulated activities for application EPC number 36-2023 with respect to 670 Hollow Tree Ridge Road.
I can see his teeth
I'll
gritting.
second that painful motion.
Yeah,
Thank you for that adjective.
All in favor?
it's a
Thank you.
painful approval.
Okay, okay, I won't ask anymore.
Okay,
Bill, you
good.
wanna do a
what?
motion to adjourn?
Oh, let's, motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Quickly.